Imagine waking up one day and realizing that the voice inside your head is not your ally. It knows your weaknesses. It remembers every humiliation. It whispers your worst fears in the quietest moments. And yet you call it me. You brush your teeth while it replays an argument from 3 years ago. You drive to work while it predicts disasters that haven't happened. You lie in bed at night while it resurrects regrets you thought were buried. It tells you who you are. It tells you what you deserve. It tells you what is possible. But here's the unsettling question. What if that voice is not guiding you, but fighting you? There is a war happening inside your mind, not a dramatic explosion, not a cinematic battle, a silent one, subtle, relentless, invisible to everyone except you. One part of you wants growth, another wants safety. One part wants truth, another wants comfort. One part dreams of becoming something greater, another insists you stay small. And the strangest part, you suffer because of this conflict, yet you protect it. You defend the very patterns that exhaust you. You cling to the thoughts that wound you. You rehearse the same inner narratives that keep you trapped. Why? Why do you return to painful memories as if they are sacred texts? Why does self-doubt feel more believable than self-confidence? Why is the familiar misery of overthinking more comfortable than the uncertainty of change? If your mind is designed for survival, why does it so often sabotage your peace? You tell yourself you want happiness. You tell yourself you want clarity. You tell yourself you want freedom. And yet, when the opportunity appears, when it demands risk, vulnerability, exposure, something inside you resists. A tightening in your chest, a quiet panic, a sudden flood of reasons why now is not the time. It feels protective, logical, even wise. But what if it's fear wearing the mask of reason? There is a paradox at the center of your inner world. The same mind that can imagine your highest potential can also manufacture your deepest prison. You are both the battlefield and the soldier, both the prisoner and the guard. And most of the time, you don't even realize the war is happening. You call it stress. You call it just overthinking. You call it personality. But what if it is something far more profound? What if every moment of procrastination is not laziness, but an internal negotiation between who you are and who you could become? What if every surge of anxiety is not weakness, but a signal that two versions of you are colliding? What if the exhaustion you feel is not from the world outside, but from the tension within? You scroll endlessly, seeking distraction. You chase validation, hoping it will quiet the noise. You set goals, then secretly undermine them. It's as if part of you fears your own transformation. And that is the most disturbing possibility of all. Because if the enemy is not your job, your childhood, your circumstances, or society, if the conflict lives inside your own psyche, then escape is not as simple as changing environments. It would mean confronting something far more intimate. It would mean questioning the stories you've told yourself for years. It would mean examining the identity you defend so fiercely. It would mean asking whether your suffering is entirely accidental or partially chosen. That thought alone is uncomfortable. So you distract yourself again. You blame external pressures. You promise to work on yourself later. Meanwhile, the war continues. A quiet argument between desire and fear, between growth and safety, between truth and illusion. And here is the great question that refuses to go away. If there is a silent war inside your mind, who is actually in control? Is it your conscious will, your past wounds, your unconscious shadows, or the cultural scripts you've absorbed without realizing it? To understand this war, you must first face something unsettling, the possibility that much of what you think is you may not be entirely yours. And that realization changes everything. The silent war inside your mind did not begin yesterday. It was not born from a single failure, a broken relationship, or one traumatic memory. It was constructed slowly, layer by layer, through childhood experiences, cultural conditioning, biological instincts, and unexamined beliefs. Long before you had language, you had fear. Long before you had ambition, you had the need to belong. Your nervous system was wired for survival, not truth. And survival, as brutal as it sounds, does not require happiness. It requires safety. This is where the fracture begins. Carl Jung believed that every human being carries a shadow, the rejected parts of the self, traits that were inconvenient, emotions that were unacceptable, desires that threatened approval. So you learned to hide them. You buried anger because it made you difficult. You buried vulnerability because it made you weak. You buried ambition because it made others uncomfortable. But what is buried does not disappear. It waits. The shadow becomes a silent strategist. It influences decisions from behind the curtain. It sabotages relationships. It fuels projections. It whispers, "Stay small, stay safe, don't risk exposure." And you mistake its voice for your own. Meanwhile, another philosophical current runs beneath the surface. Friedrich Nietzsche warned that human beings fear their own potential more than their limitations. To become who you truly are requires the destruction of who you have been. And destruction, even when necessary, feels like death. So you cling to your familiar identity, even if it suffocates you. There is comfort in predictability, even if that predictability is pain. Jean-Paul Sartre called this bad faith, the act of lying to yourself to avoid the responsibility of freedom. You say you have no choice. You say circumstances define you. You say the system controls everything. And while society certainly exerts pressure, something deeper is happening. Freedom terrifies you. Because freedom means you cannot blame anyone else. And the mind would rather suffer uncertainty than risk the chaos of possibility. Then there is the biological layer. Your brain evolved in environments where social rejection meant death. The amygdala still reacts to embarrassment as if it were physical danger. When you consider expressing an unpopular opinion or pursuing a risky dream, your body responds as though a predator is near. The silent war intensifies here. Your higher reasoning says, "This could transform your life." Your nervous system screams, "This could destroy you." Which voice wins? Add to this the cultural script. Modern society rewards performance over authenticity. It encourages comparison, not introspection. It sells distraction as relief. Social media algorithms amplify outrage and insecurity because those emotions generate engagement.
You are constantly exposed to curated perfection, and your mind quietly measures itself against illusions. Aldous Huxley foresaw a world where people would not be controlled by force, but by pleasure and distraction. The war inside your mind is conveniently numbed by endless entertainment. You never sit still enough to examine the conflict. And then there is meaning, or the lack of it. Viktor Frankl observed that human beings, when lacking meaning, experience an existential vacuum, boredom, restlessness, chronic dissatisfaction. The mind begins inventing drama to fill the void. Overthinking becomes stimulation. Anxiety becomes proof that something important is happening. Without meaning,